Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Just waiting for a few others to join. I know that some people have asked for the recording instead, but that's okay. I'll keep an eye on the waiting room whilst we make a start. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Hopefully you can all hear me and see my screen, how to start a side hustle. Let me know if you can't. Perfect. Okay. Just admit a couple more people. Great. Whilst I am just seeing if anybody else joins us, it would be really awesome to, if everybody could just drop in the chat perhaps where they are joining from. We've been running these workshops for a number of weeks online now, and it's been fascinating to see where everybody has come from. So if you could just drop in the chat where you are. Romania, Berlin, New York, Tewkesbury. Where's Tewkesbury, Penny? London, Bristol, Grantham. Awesome. It's really awesome that we can get people joining from outside London now that we're doing these online. So it's really lovely to have an even more diverse mix than we're used to at Escape. Great. Okay. Perhaps give me some jazz hands if you've heard of Escape before, or just raise your hand if you know kind of who we are and what we're about. So Escape, we started as a side hustle 10 years ago in the last financial crisis, and the co-founders are Dom and Rob, and they'd had a very traditional kind of graduate career beginning to their jobs, and they were in consulting on a graduate program and sat in their cubicles and thinking kind of, is this all there is? Is this what we just worked so hard for? So they started thinking about potential business ideas, and they thought, if we're unfulfilled in our jobs, then that's probably a problem lots of other people have too. So they spent their weekends looking online for interesting jobs that they could escape to. And then they started sending 10 jobs every Monday morning as a little like dream list of things that they could be doing with their time to their mates. That top 10 email every Monday has now been going every week for 10 years. And I think within like the first month, they had about 1,000 people signed up, and it now goes to tens of thousands of people every week. And that was 10 years ago. And we now have the jobs board and the school side of the business. And the school side does the career change and the startup accelerator programs. We're just launching a membership program and workshops like this. So we started as a side hustle. We've now grown to be a global community for people who want to do work that matters to them and the world. So that's a little bit about Escape. I'm Stacey. So this is my journey into the world of side hustling. I also had a very corporate background. I studied business and economics at university, and then did 10 years in investment banking and investment management. But I did the Escape Startup Program myself way back at the beginning of 2016, with the idea of starting a side hustle around personal finance and helping people be good with money, regardless of how much financial knowledge they thought that they had. So I've been running that since 2016. That's what Pakira Money is on the right-hand side. But I've also been working for Escape for the last 2 years. So in 2018, I joined Escape, and I managed their alumni community, which is now 1,500 strong of startup founders, side hustlers, freelancers, career changers, all doing really fascinating things. I also co-lead the Career Change program, a lot of whom go on to do side hustles themselves. And I run the workshops like this one this evening. I'm still running Pakira Money, so I run my side hustle on the side of my Escape work, which probably takes up about a third to a half of my time now, and through Procura Money, how that idea has evolved, I'm now consulting various organizations on personal finance and digital personal finance tools, personal finance coaching, personal finance workshops, with all of kind of those organizations on the other side of the slide. So that's a bit about me and Escape. In the next kind of just under 3 hours, I'm going to try and share as much as I know and as much as Escape knows about side hustles. We're due to finish at about 9:45, but we'll have a break mid-session. And this is being recorded. So you will get the recording after tonight, as well as the materials that I share and additional resources. So don't worry too much. There's a lot to cover tonight, so don't worry too much about scribing everything down, because you will get access to it to go through in your own time after tonight. It would be really nice for you to also meet each other and start building your side hustle community. So what I'm going to do is break you off into groups of 2 or 3, just for a couple of minutes each, to share what brought you here tonight, why you're interested in starting a side hustle, if you have an idea about what you want that side hustle to be, if you would like to share that, and perhaps what you're hoping to get out of the evening. So I will put you into groups of 2 or 3 and bring you back in about 6 minutes or so. Enjoy.
That sounds good.
Right, they're coming back in a minute. Welcome back, guys. Put you all up here.
There we go. Gosh, that's terrifying.
Great. I think we are all now back. Welcome back, everybody. So hopefully some interesting conversations with the group already. I'm looking forward to hearing more about your startup ideas as we progress through tonight. Please do, as we go through some exercises, drop some responses into the chat. We're going to be doing some creative idea generation stuff, and it was always really good to get those juices flowing and inspire each other with sharing your ideas. So please use the chat for that. And also any questions that you have, I will try and monitor the chat and get to them tonight. If I don't, I will have a recording of the chat and I'll make sure I respond to them in the email tomorrow with all of the materials that we send out. Okay, so how to start a side hustle. Building a side hustle is a process. There's lots to think about. It requires lots of work and lots of energy and personal investment. But this is the approach that we want to take you through tonight, is thinking about these 5 questions. I'm sure that you will visit these a number of times as you launch your side hustle, as you pivot along the way, but hopefully tonight gives you a good sense of how you might approach each of these 5 questions. So why are you doing it? What problem are you looking to solve with your side hustle? How are you going to make money? Because that's also important. How you are reaching your target customers, and how you can make your side hustle work for you. Because if it doesn't work for you, then what's the point in the first place? So thinking about how it can work for you too. So those are the 5 questions that we're going to cover this evening. First one being, why build a business and side hustle? You might already have an idea. You might have a bunch of ideas. You might think that you want to do something, but you're not sure. It might just sound exciting to you, but haven't put much thought into it yet. That's all okay. Hopefully tonight will help you in different ways, in various ways, whatever stage you're at with your side hustle. But you probably do all have slightly different reasons as to why you want to start a side hustle in the first place. And it's really important to understand our own motivator. The first one might be because you want to build new skills. So the world is changing at an ever increasing pace. There are jobs that exist today that we could never have imagined 5 years ago. I'm sure that that's going to continue to be the case in the future. And we are changing too, and our needs are changing. We're evolving. We are working longer. We probably want to have more variety in our career than we've typically had before, or generations have had before us. So building new skills can be a real motivator for starting a side hustle. And a broad range of skills and competencies is the best way that we can future-proof ourselves for challenges coming down the line. World challenges, career challenges, business challenges. Building new skills can only help us future-proof for our own career going forward. It might be that you want to start a side hustle to earn extra income. That's also great. You might be one of these people who wants to retire early and make as much money as possible so they can retire early. You might just enjoy the challenge of trying to generate your own income, or weaning yourself off the addiction to the monthly salary. I think, if anything, COVID and lockdown has taught many of us the hard way that now more than ever, the idea of diversifying our income is a smart move. Because if we only have one stream of income and something goes wrong, like a global pandemic, all of a sudden we can be a lot more vulnerable than we perhaps thought that we were. So diversifying our income, lots more of us are doing it. Lots more employers are open to doing it. Escape is obviously in this field, but I think most of the team have their own side hustle and another way of generating income, at least one other way of generating income. So it's becoming more and more common and more accepted, and it's a smart move to diversify your income. It might be that you want to transition into something new. I obviously work with a lot of career changes. Most of them have come across stumbling blocks like reluctant recruiters looking to keep you in a box and just move you into a job that you were doing before, or hiring managers not necessarily understanding your motivations for switching into a different sector, trying out new skills, following a different purpose. So one of the easiest ways for us to move our career into something new is starting it ourselves. This is Dom Jackman, one of the co-founders of Escape that I spoke about earlier. He was obviously really unhappy in his consulting job, and his first immediate response to that was, I'll do a master's or an MBA, because that's what people do. But he never loved education, and it's obviously a very expensive option. And then it was a big decision to kind of choose the MBA and then commit to that, spend the time and energy on it without really knowing if it was going to solve the problem. So instead, he thought that he would learn by doing, and he started Escape. And that's a really great way to transition into something new, is just by starting it yourself. You don't need permission from anybody else. You can just start the journey. I'm sure you guys have heard of Yuval Harari, the writer of Sapiens and Homo Deus, and he speaks about, if people want to continue to have a job and to understand the world and be relevant to what is happening, people will have to reinvent themselves again and again, and faster. And sometimes it's acknowledging that you don't need other people to give you permission to start reinventing yourself. You can do that yourself, and starting a side hustle is a really great way to do that. And finally, it might be that you're doing it because there's a problem in the world that really excites you, or that you really care about, that you're really interested in solving. So your side hustle could be a passion project. It could be that you really care about tackling climate change. It could be that one of your family members have gone through something upsetting or traumatic, and you don't want other people to have that same experience. It might be that you've been through your own challenge in life or discrimination in some way, or you've overcome a blocker in your life and you think it would have been so much easier if I had this, and now you're interested in starting that as a side hustle to help other people. There's lots of different problems that you could really care about, and trying to solve that can be a really strong motivator for starting and continuing your side hustle journey. The best thing about a side hustle, regardless of what your motivations are, is that you can just have fun with it. If it's on the side of your job, you don't need to put financial pressure on it. You don't need to try and make income from it straight away. So you can hold it lightly, experiment with it, approach it as an experiment. It's obviously much less risky than quitting your job and starting something. And you know, it's easier than it has been perhaps before to start. I don't necessarily mean getting traction and growing very quickly, because we are in difficult times, but I mean there are free tools out there, and there's more and more ways to connect with potential customers, so you can at least put your idea out there into the world. So whatever your motivations are, it's really important to think about what your own definition of success is. Because starting a side hustle is really hard. It requires energy and effort and investment from yourself. It requires carving out time around a job and busy schedules that I'm sure you all have. And it probably requires saying no to certain other things in life. So having a really clear why, it's going to help you get through kind of any challenges that come your way. It's going to help you keep momentum and keep progress. And so knowing what success looks like for you and what success feels like for you it's also going to help you make decisions as you progress along your journey. So if you know what your why is, that can inform which idea you want to pursue. It's going to inform what sort of clients that you want to target, how you might design your product or how you set up your business model, how far you take it, how much time you dedicate to it. So knowing your own definition of success is the first step in designing your side hustle. So your why might be that you hate your job and you want to change. It might be that you want to build up new skills, that you see a problem that needs a solution, that you have a solution and you're looking for a problem, or that you want to make extra money. All of these are valid apart from this one. So lots of people come to Escape with an idea, and they say, I've got an idea, I'm going to launch this business, but they don't really know what problem they're solving, or why they want to launch it, or who even needs the idea. And that alone, the idea alone, isn't really a strong enough reason to launch something. Because for a business to be successful, it needs to be solving a clear need or a problem in the world, and people need to be willing to kind of pay for it. So having a really strong why is important. So the first thing that I would like you to do is just to spend a couple of minutes writing down what your why is, what your own definition of success is, what that might look like for you. And I encourage you to be as specific as you can be so that it really resonates with you personally. This is going to be a guiding principle for how you design your startup in various different ways. So it's really important that your why is really clear and specific and really resonates with you. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes now just to write down your own why, your own definition of success. Okay, so the quickest of the 5 questions to go through tonight, but it's a really important one, and you might want to revisit your why after perhaps we've been through the rest of the ideas from tonight. So it's really important that you get really clear on what's driving you and what's driving your startup, because it is very helpful when you design things later on down the line, as I have learned in various different ways through Pakira. Okay, So when you have a clear idea of the motivations for your side hustle, the second point we're going to go through is, what problem are you trying to solve? So the best businesses solve a problem that enough people have and care about that they are willing to pay someone to fix that problem for them. So a good rule of thumb for business ideas is that they should either be creating joy or relieving pain, because we all work really hard for our money. We're more and more conscious of where we spend our money. And if we want someone to part with that hard-earned money, we're going to need to be doing one of these two things. So it's just a really nice litmus test. Am I creating joy or am I relieving pain? So where do the best startup ideas come from? They come from problems that you might have in your day-to-day life or less frequently. There might be problems that you see other people have, or they might be big problems that the world as a collective might have. The key, obviously, is that they all stem from a problem. So even if you have an idea that you've bought tonight, I really encourage you to hold the idea and the solution quite lightly and be open to flexing it, playing with it a little bit, because what really matters is that you obsess about the problem you are looking to solve. Because once you understand the problem and you understand who it is you're solving the problem for, you may discover various other solutions that might fit even more or align more closely with your own why, that might work better for you, that might work better for your customers. So obsessing about the problem that your side hustle is looking to solve is a great way to generate empathy with your customers, be able to speak to them more clearly, be able to design something that works for you and that works for them. So one thing I want to do at the start of the session is demystify this idea of idea generation, because we might have one and we might have run with it. We might think that we might not have any ideas. We might think that we're useless at coming up with business ideas. We might just need to flex our creative idea muscle a little bit, because anybody can have business ideas. So to get us into the creative flow, we're going to play a couple of games. The first one is what we call hybrid inventions. And for hybrid inventions, what I'd like you to do is write down on a piece of paper in front of you a random object. Something that just pops into your head. You might be able to see it in front of you. You might have just thought about it on the spot. Don't overthink it. Just write one random object. Give you 10 seconds or so to write that down. Okay, so once you have your random object, I'm going to break you out into pairs and give you a couple of minutes to come up with as many different ways as you can think of to combine those two things into a hybrid invention. There are no bad ideas. Quantity over quality. Just think of how many different ways you can think of combining your two seemingly random objects to create a hybrid invention. So give me 1 second to sort out the breakout rooms. There they are. And I will give you 2 minutes. Let me recreate these. 1 second. Okay, some of you might be in groups of 3, so your challenge is to combine all 3 if possible, or at least 2 of them if you can, and I will bring you back in 2 to 3 minutes to hear some of your inventions.
Hi, there was no one, my room was empty. The person that I was with, Elm or something, I don't think there's anyone behind that.
Oh, right. Okay. Oh, sorry.
No, but no, it's fine. I don't mind. I've done something like that before, but like just so you know, for when like linking them up with other people, that there might be nobody there.
Great. Thank you. I'll try and mix up who's with who each time. So hopefully it doesn't happen to you twice.
Yeah, no, don't worry. That's fine.
Thank you. Okay, everyone's slowly coming back. It would be great to hear some of the ideas. So if anybody's feeling brave enough to just put in the chat, perhaps what your 2 or 3 objects were and any inventions you came up with in the chat, that would be super. It's always fascinating to see what ideas people come up with in this game. And there's been some really good ones. I had one the other month where someone had a drinks coaster and a lamp. So they came up with a movement censored drink coaster for the night. So when you're reaching for your water at night, the drink coaster would light up so you could see where your water was without having to turn a big light on, which is great. So Heather and Lowry had a vase and a pillow. Gosh, what did you come up with for that? Any ideas? Lindsay, umbrella, tennis ball and flower. We made an indoor flower garden that hangs from the inside of an umbrella with a tennis ball hanging from string that you can play with to pretend you're outside. Oh, what a great lockdown idea. The pillow could act as a protector for the vase, bubble wrap alternative. Nice. Yeah, I'm sure that there's lots of families who've potentially had vases broken with kids running around in lockdown. So that could definitely be helpful. Awesome. Right, it sounds like some of those ideas are really great. Hopefully it got the juices flowing. Ideas don't need to be good. The whole idea is that you give yourself permission to have bad ideas, because coming up with bad ideas is what, it flexes the muscle, quality over quantity. It's part of the creative process, and it allows us to realize that actually it's not just the idea itself that makes a side hustle successful. It's more about the execution, which we'll come into later. Super. So the second game is called Solving Pain Points. And you can do this one solo. The first thing to do is pick a demographic. So it might be a demographic for an idea that you already have, or you can choose a random one. I've put some here on the slide that you might want to play with. So unfulfilled professionals, that's obviously one that's relevant to Escape the City. Entrepreneurs, single dads, recently divorced, the elderly, teachers, politicians. There's a number of different demographics that you might choose. So you can pick one of these from the slide. You can choose one that you think one of your ideas is relevant to, or just come up with one on the spot. But I'll give you 10 seconds or so to come up with a demographic. Oh, a mouse designed as a tennis ball, doubling up as a stress ball. Oh, yes, please. I'll buy one of those. Great. Okay, so once you have your demographic, I want you to spend a few minutes writing down all of the problems or challenges that demographic faces. They might be problems relevant to an idea that you have. They might just be problems that these people might have as they go about their day-to-day lives. This exercise is about creativity. It's also about developing empathy, which is one of those traits that an entrepreneur or a side hustle founder really needs and can be really helpful to understanding and talking to your customers. So spend a few minutes thinking about all of the different problems that this demographic might have. Big problems, everyday problems, small problems, it all counts. Okay, So we have a demographic and we have a list of problems or challenges they face. The next step is picking one of those challenges or one of those problems, and then coming up with as many different ways that you could solve that problem for them. You don't have to choose the biggest problem that they have. Just pick one problem that feels interesting to you, that, you know, where your energy is naturally going, and as many different solutions to that problem that you can think of. So I'll give you 3 minutes to come up with potential solutions. Again, quantity precedes quality. We're in the creative process. They might be big solutions, big business ideas, big tech ideas, big campaigns. They could be really small, having a cup of tea with a lonely elderly person, doing one coaching session with an individual, and everything in between. So just come up with as many different ways that you could solve that problem for them as you can think of. You need a couple of minutes to do this. Okay, so we've identified a demographic, problems that they have, and then numerous solutions or ways that we could solve that problem for them. So you might be going through these exercises thinking, I don't really want to help these people, or how is this particular idea going to make money? This is all really interesting data points for us, and it also kind of makes us open to the idea of playing with our side hustle idea and being open to hunch ideas potentially becoming something, ideas pivoting into something else, being able to respond to what our customers are actually telling us or feeding back to us, being responsive to if we are really finding something interesting that we thought we would, or if we're launching a sort of product or using the sorts of skills that we really want to. So it's giving yourself permission to hold your ideas quite lightly and be quite explorative with your side hustle ideas. And it also gives us the opportunity, when we think more about the problem and the people that we're trying to solve it for, it gives us the opportunity to potentially come up with these hybrid inventions of combining seemingly random problems for interesting business ideas. So a few examples of what I mean by that. Hands up if you've heard of So Far Sounds. So Far Sounds, that came about because they took interesting artists, and people love going to gigs, with this problem of there's lots of spaces that aren't kind of bedrooms in London or in big cities that aren't getting used. Gigs are really expensive to put on, and one of the biggest expenses is obtaining the venue. So wouldn't it be great if they could use these venues that are interesting spaces that aren't really expensive to rent out, still giving people the experience of a gig, which we already know that they love. So they started hosting these small intimate gigs in strange places, and they're now hosting those all around the world. Stashbee is a storage business. It's like Airbnb for storage. And this was started as a side hustle to escape alumni from the startup program. So the problems were storage is really expensive, and it's annoying going through the process of getting some storage, going to the storage units. Wouldn't it be really nice if I could just store my stuff at my neighbour's round the corner? So they were using this idea of people need to store stuff, and there's people with space that would also probably want some extra income. So why don't we create a matching service for people who need space and people who want space? So they started Stashbee as a side hustle. It's now the 5th largest storage company in the UK, and they're running it as a full-blown business with teams of 10s, and they've just gone through successful crowdfunding, and it's now, yeah, the 5th largest storage company in the UK. But it started as a side hustle, combining this storage issue in London. Third example is the Zero Waste Xmas Market. So a friend of Escape's combined her love of Christmas, but it being a relatively wasteful time of year with her interest in sustainability and this problem around wanting to create less waste in the world. So she combined them into the Zero Waste Christmas Market, and she hosted her first Christmas market 2 years ago in London, and she got 600 people coming along, and it received lots of press attention. Last year, she expanded that. So she's now hired a team and she expanded that, and she ran 4 Christmas markets in 3 different locations around the UK last year. And she's now got lots of spin-off products and services that all started because of this Christmas market. And we'll talk more about spin-off ideas and different revenue streams later. So combining different problems that you might have or that a target customer might have can be a really interesting way of coming up with some innovative side hustle ideas. So I want to go through a few myths and truths about starting up. So the first myth is you need to reinvent the wheel. So I've got to do something that doesn't exist in the world, that no one's done before, that's totally different. If we see someone doing something that's seemingly similar to something that we want to be doing, that could be enough to put us off. Whereas actually, second mover advantage could work in our favor. So someone else might be doing it, but they might take a very different approach to you, and it might not have been done by you before. And Sky, our COO, always talks about pioneers get shot first. So there might actually be an advantage in being second or third or late to the market, because the first people who do something totally new have to enter the space, explain to people what they're doing and why they're doing it, educating their customers, talking them through how it works, making all of the mistakes that nobody has made before. And so doing all of that work really eases the way for the rest of us that follow. So if the problem that you're looking to solve is big enough and there are enough people who have that problem, there is space for multiple people to try and solve that problem in different ways. So don't ignore what might be right in front of you or that might be the hanging fruit. Just something to think about if that was a blocker for you. The second myth is, and there's a lot of argument in the startup world around this, but the myth that your idea is valuable. So we've had so many people come to Escape, to workshops and to the startup program and say, I've got this idea, but I'm not going to share it with you unless you sign an NDA, or I don't want to tell anyone about the idea yet because I'm worried that someone might copy me. Whereas the reality is, lots of people have business ideas. Lots of us have books full of ideas that we want to start one day. But really, everything is in the execution of the idea. Nobody will copy you until you prove it that it works, because starting a side hustle is really hard and requires a lot of effort. So they'll be looking to prove it. If you have proven it and people are copying you, then that's just validation of your idea. So this is a concept that Derek Sivers, a startup guru who started CD Baby, came up with. And his concept is that good ideas are worth nothing. Well, they're not worth nothing, they're worth something, but they're only worth what you do with them. So if you execute an idea really well, that's when it becomes a valuable idea. It's why you see mediocre startup ideas do really well, because they've executed it brilliantly. So a better way of thinking about ideas is that they are multipliers of your execution. So they're only going to be worth something when you get them out of your head, share them with the world, and do something with them. So don't worry, don't let the fear of sharing your idea with someone else stop you from doing something with it in the first place. And this is quite a liberating concept, I think, because it means that we don't hang on so tightly to our idea. We want to share it with the world. That gives us the opportunity to get feedback, to test our assumptions, which we'll talk about later, have a willingness to adapt that idea and flex that idea according to what feedback we're getting from potential customers, and to be quite experimental with it. And it might be that if your motivations around startup aren't wedded to one particular idea, it might be that sharing this one with the world and trying it and executing it actually just gives you loads of lessons that you might fail, but your next idea, which is one you might be more interested in, could benefit from all of those lessons and that learning and have even better execution and give it another shot. So for the rest of the evening, I'm going to invite you to choose just one business idea to work with, or even if it's not a specific idea, just a broad field or topic that you're thinking about launching your side hustle in. So you might already have this, you might have come to it this evening with it already. If not, just choose an idea that you're potentially interested in, or a field or a topic that you're interested in. So I've put some examples down there. So career change, obviously relevant to Escape. Money is one for my side hustle, Pikira. You might be generally interested in some sort of design, in food or cooking, or food products. It might be fitness or well-being. You can have lots of ideas within this one topic. I just want you to use one topic for the rest of the night, so you get used to and familiar with the exercises that we're going to go through. So you can do them with any number of ideas afterwards, but just holding one field or topic or idea for the rest of the night. Give you a few seconds to commit to one. Okay. So once you have that idea, I'm going to go back to this idea of demographics and building empathy with our customers. And I want you to spend a few minutes thinking about all the different types of people that you could help in this field, and thinking about as many different types of people that you can. So if I've used the Escape side hustle as an example, people looking for more fulfilling work, I could choose expats moving to a new country and starting a new career in a new country, or people returning for paternity leave and wanting to do something different with their career, ex-offenders who have been in prison and needing to start their career again, graduates who didn't really like their degree and want to do something different, people who've been in corporate for a number of years and feel really unhappy, older people who are further into their career and feel like it's too late for them to change. It might be, instead of a demographic, it might be a certain mindset that they have. So career changes might just be people who feel stuck and are looking for direction, or it might be someone who's tried to apply for a number of different jobs and have been rejected, or have had a really bad experience with a recruiter. So I just want you to spend 5 minutes thinking about, in your field, as many different groups of people that you could help in that field. Be as specific as you can be. You've all got a computer in front of you, so feel free to use Google or Ecosia to research, Google your field and see what types of people come up. If you can try and get at least 5, that would be great. Okay, so hopefully you all came up with at least 5 different groups who might be your target customers for your idea or topic area. This could be really helpful because it's going to inform how you design your product, how you market your product, the channels that you use to promote yourself and to reach your target customers. Or it might be that you launch your idea for one specific group and it doesn't work out. And doing some of this work beforehand means that you can quite quickly pivot into a different area to target a different niche. Or it's helped you come up with other ideas that you hadn't yet thought of that feel just as exciting. If you're going through this process thinking, actually, I don't really want to help these people, that's also great, because we would rather know that now before we invest too much of our time and energy into it. And ultimately, we want to build a side hustle. That means we get to spend our precious time with people that we really enjoy working with and helping and supporting. So it's all valuable information that we're building about ourselves and our potential customers. So the next step is understanding what their pains and their fears are. So you might want to choose one specific group that you've identified. You might still want to play with 2 or 3, that's okay. But choose one specific target group and or 2 or 3, sorry, and ask yourself, what are their pains and fears? Again, just list as many as you can think of. Don't limit yourself at this stage. All of the different pains and fears that these people might have. So if it was career change, for example, and I was looking at graduates, one of their pains might be that they have loads of student debt and they really need to get on the career ladder, but they want to do something that they also really enjoy. Or it might be that I'm working with people who have been in a certain corporate sector for 10 years and they don't have any network in an area that they're looking or interested in moving into. Or people coming back from paternity leave and they've really lost their confidence around recruiting and applying for jobs. So thinking about, for whichever demographic or handful of demographics you choose, all of the different pains and fears that they have relating to the topic or field that you've chosen. A couple of minutes to do this. Okay, so once we have some pains and fears to work with, I want you to pick just one of those. So it could be one pain or problem that one of those demographics has, or it might be a pain or problem that is experienced by a number of your different demographics. But I just want you to pick one. Again, it doesn't need to be the most exciting one, just one that feels interesting for you. And then with that one pain or problem, I want you to list as many different ways to relieve that pain or solve that problem as you can. So don't limit yourself to how you might make money from it at this stage. We can eliminate potential ideas later. For now, it's just flexing that idea muscle. Might be big ways to solve a problem, small ways, simple, complex, cheap, expensive, digital, non-digital, all the different ways that you could help resolve that problem or solve that pain for them. A few minutes to do that. Okay. So hopefully what we've done so far is just show that focusing on the problem, thinking about your potential different customer groups, building empathy for that problem, for those customers and you, can actually provoke lots of different business ideas. And we're probably more creative and have more potential avenues that we can pursue than we think. So it can be really creative to help start with the customers and the problems rather than the idea. But you've got to pick an idea at some point to at least start experimenting with. So the next step is whittling down the ideas that you've come up with, and importantly, which idea you specifically should work on. So this isn't about the best idea to solve a problem for this demographic. It's about what idea feels right for you. Perhaps going back to our why and thinking about which one's aligned most to what your own definition of success is, and also thinking about which one feels right for you, which one feels interesting for you. Now, there's lots of frameworks around decision making that we could use to answer this question. I'm going to suggest a couple tonight. I was just checking we're still on record. We are. This is the first one. So the first way that we think about what idea we should or you should work on is thinking about, firstly, what solutions really interest you. So which potential ways to solve that problem feel exciting for you? So let's use my financial education and well-being side hustle as an example, I might have come up with digital solutions to help people build awareness around their relationship with money. I might have come up with individual one-to-one coaching on financial well-being. I might have designed workshops or a month-long boot camp, or some sort of product that teaches you how to be better with money, like an intelligent money bank or piggy bank or something like that. Now, there's probably some of those ideas that naturally interest me more. I don't really have an interest in designing a tech product. It's not really what I'm interested in. I'm really interested in the psychology of money. So perhaps getting people together in workshops or coaching might be more interesting for me. So the first question is, which idea feels really interesting to you? And then what skills do you already have that make you well placed to start launching that idea? So I don't have digital or tech skills. So perhaps my first idea shouldn't be some sort of tech product or app or online experience. I do have skills in financial coaching, in facilitating workshops, in building relationships with people. So perhaps that gives me a clue as to what idea I would be looking to prioritize. And then it's, what networks do I have access to? For both customers and potential suppliers or people I'm going to need to work with, what networks do I currently have access to? So financial education is one where there's potentially lots of different networks I can pursue. If your idea is more niche, like something in healthcare, and if you don't know any doctors or nurses or people who work in healthcare, then that might be trickier for you to think about. Or if you're really interested in gardens and you work and live in a city where nobody has outdoor space, that might be tricky in terms of networks. And then fourthly, the mission. So is it really solving a problem in the world that you care about? Is it aligned to your own values and your own kind of problems that you want to help solve in the world? Essentially, is it something that you get really excited about? Because you're the one who's going to be carving out time for it. You're the one who's going to be spending energy on it. It's only going to work if you do. So it has to really be aligned to your mission. So if, say, my tech solution was specifically in improving financial education, that's not really my mission. If I'm honest with myself, my mission is more about helping people understand the role that money plays in their lives, helping people understand how their relationship with money can change the way we manage it, how we can use money to tackle climate change. Those sorts of ideas are much more aligned to my own personal missions. So I would more likely choose an idea like that. You don't have to tick all the boxes at this stage. So there might be one specific skill that you might need to develop, but it wouldn't be, you'd have something in that space. You might need to develop a network, but you might have some leads that you could start to pursue. But that is a potential framework to help you choosing or whittling down some of your ideas. The next one is the demand matrix. So the demand matrix is, a business has to make money, and to do that there has to be demand from people willing to pay for your idea from somewhere. So we can start mapping the ideas that we've come up with into this demand matrix. So in the demand matrix that we have high-end ideas, which are ideas that have a high price point and few customers. So something where you don't need many customers, but every customer spends a lot of money on it. So being an art dealer, or designing some sort of customer retention consultancy that certain organizations or sectors would pay a lot for. So a high price point with few customers. The golden goose, where I hope lots of us would love to play in, I'm sure, is where there's a high price point and many customers. So career change for Escape might be something like this, because it's something that lots of people feel unfulfilled in their career and they want change, and they're also willing to pay a significant amount of money to do that. So a golden goose, high price point, many customers, lovely place to be. Some of your ideas that you've written down might be those. Or it might be more of a labor of love side hustle. So things that you really enjoy doing, that might be a low price point and not many customers. So it might be more of, well, a labor of love. So you might want to do upcycling of clothes for your local community, or host events to tackle loneliness within your neighborhood. Or it might be some sort of creative pursuit that a few people might want to spend money on, but it might not be able to sustain all of your financial needs. And then lastly, the mass market. So low price, but lots of people willing to spend money here. So blogging, typically, if you're like blogging in the wellness space or the nutrition space or the travel space, you might get a little bit of income from it. Lots of people might look at it, but they won't be expecting to spend a lot of money on it. Or especially now, there might be free alternatives out there. So if you've come up with a number of ideas for your field, for your demographic type, for your problems that you're looking to solve for them, you might want to map out some of the ideas that you've had into this matrix, and ask yourself, check back in with, is there demand here? How much demand is there? Which one of these ideas aligns to, my own definition of success? Hopefully there'll be ones where there is demand and they're aligned to your success, and that would be the sweet spot. Or it might be that there's a labor of love that you just feel really driven to pursue and you really want to do that. That's awesome. You might want to pursue that, but you might also have financial needs. So you might know that alongside that, you want to be thinking about more of a mass market product that might generate income that you can do alongside that too. So you might have to balance out with juggling different ideas. So demand matrix is the second way that you might whittle down some of your ideas. So once you have an idea, what do you do next? So let's just say that you've chosen one idea to solve a problem for a customer group. What a lot of people do at this point is quit their job to start up, or think they need an expensive tech solution and hire a developer, or spend a lot of money on building a website, or spend the next 2 years developing skills that they think they might need. We don't recommend that you do any of these things. They are certain approaches, but they're often expensive. They often require a lot of time and require a lot of risk. So what we would recommend that you do instead is validate and prioritize. So what we've seen really work is people following what we call the assumption first technique. So this technique is, all of our ideas are filled with assumptions. We all carry so many assumptions with us in our lives. The simplest way to think about this is listing out all of the assumptions that you can think of that need to be true for your idea to work. So what am I assuming to be true for this idea? What am I assuming about my customers? What am I assuming about my idea? What am I assuming about money for this idea to really work as a side hustle? So it's thinking like a scientist and being quite methodical about it. And you might come up with 20 to 30 assumptions before it gets difficult to think of others. And then you rank those assumptions about how risky they are. So let's say we were using Airbnb as an example side hustle. People thought there's loads of empty bedrooms, people need to make more money from it, hotels are really full, let's start something where you can stay in strangers' homes. Their biggest assumption might be people are willing to stay in strangers' houses without knowing them. That's a pretty big risk or assumption that Airbnb have, that if that isn't true, then the whole business idea isn't going to work. They might also have an assumption that Airbnb is a better brand than Stay with Strangers. It's an assumption that they're making, but if it isn't true, changing their brand is something relatively less risky to do at the start. So once you've got all of your assumptions, ranking them as to what feels the most risky, and then designing tests to prove and disprove those assumptions before you've invested too much time and energy in building something. So there are lots of different assumption categories. You might be making assumptions about your customers. So you might be making an assumption that this problem is a big enough problem for them to spend money on. So Airbnb might be assuming that they would be willing to pay to stay in strangers' houses, or that with Airbnb, they have both the customer side and the supplier side. So they might be making assumptions that there are people would want strangers to stay in their houses, or people will be willing to be good hosts to strangers who stay in their houses. So any assumptions you're making about your customers' behaviors, it might be that you're making supplier assumptions that you can easily get access to a certain product, or that you can easily deliver something within a certain amount of time, or something around what suppliers you might need. Then you'll have business assumptions. This is a really important one. So business assumptions are assumptions around your financial model. So how many people need to pay for your service, and how regularly for this to be a side hustle that's financially viable for you. How much do you think they're willing to pay on this idea? Do you think they're going to pay £40 for your 1 hour of coaching? Do you think they're going to pay £150 for it? Do you think they're going to be repeat customers, or do you think they're going to be one-off customers? How many customers do you need to be paying a certain amount to achieve kind of the revenue that you need to achieve? Then you might have operational assumptions. So your operational assumptions might be how you're going to run the business. Like, what do you need insurance? Are there any other regulations that you need to fulfill in order to do this? How might you run it from a website, and do you need any certain software to do it? Then you might have product assumptions, so assumptions around designing your specific product and features that you think that product needs to have. And you might have marketing assumptions, so what sort of content you might be using, how you might need to reach your customers, what sort of campaigns do you need to do. So all of these assumptions, there will be many that we all have for our own ideas. Remember, I'm going to send you these slides so you'll have access to come back to them later. These are some assumptions that we thought of in Escape for Airbnb. Business models are the really uncomfortable ones, but they're really important. So they're all about the numbers and knowing if this is really going to work. So Airbnb might be, people are going to stay on average this amount of nights. They're going to need this service amount of times per year, so how many times they're going to use the service. They might be expecting it to be used more in certain times of the year than other times of the year, so they might have cyclical business assumptions, and what their revenue and profit and loss might be as a result of some of those assumptions. This whole process is really difficult, because what we're asking ourselves to do is pick holes in our own idea, which never feels nice. We want to know that our idea is a really good one, and we want other people to tell us our idea is a really good one. So it feels uncomfortable to do, but by doing this work up front and testing the assumptions that we have, using an hour here, an hour there at the start of our side hustle, we're really front loading a lot of potential pain that could come later. And if one of your assumptions doesn't work or is proven wrong, that's okay. It doesn't mean that your whole idea is a failure. It just means you need to reiterate it a little bit. So let's say Airbnb went out to their customers when they were first thinking about the idea with a survey to 100 people and said, would you stay in a stranger's house? Maybe 5 of them said yes. You could take that information as, oh, okay, then this idea isn't a good one, like I've failed. But not necessarily, because what you could do is go back and ask, what needs to be in place for you to be comfortable to stay at a stranger's house? And that's when they find out, oh, well, if there's reviews from other customers, if there's some sort of insurance policy where Airbnb will cover me if a number of things go wrong, if I get to have a conversation with the stranger or the host before I get to stay there. And then all of a sudden you've got loads of information to inform how you design your product and service. So going out and testing these assumptions is actually you just gathering more information to make your idea even more of a robust one. So it's just mitigating any risks that we have up front. Every idea has them. I'm not going to get you to list out all of your assumptions now. I'm sure that you've thought of some as I've spoken through that approach and some of those examples. And we will send you this canvas here for you to work through your assumptions for your own idea. Even big companies make expensive mistakes around their assumptions. So a really good one is Google Glasses, as an example. So one of their key customer assumptions was that people are going to wear glasses that look a bit funny because they want to be able to look at the internet whilst they're walking around. But actually, they spent loads of time, loads of money, which is fine because they have a lot, but loads of investment on designing and building this product and then going to launch, and then finding out at the last minute that a key customer assumption was proved to be false. Now they're relaunching it specifically for people in industry where it doesn't matter what you look like when you're wearing the glasses. So specifically for scientists or people in the healthcare industry where it might benefit them to quickly be able to see something on the internet through their glasses. But it's an example to really bring to life why testing your assumptions as early as possible can be a really good way to design your idea and de-risk your idea from the beginning. Designing a test for your assumption. So any assumptions that you have, you create a test for it. So your test should be the quickest and easiest way that you can test that assumption and get valuable insights. So it might be that you go out with a survey and you try and ask 50 people. In one of my money coaching examples, perhaps, from 1 to 10, how worried are you that you don't understand more about your pension, as an example? Or do you understand your pension? Do you save into a pension? And testing all these assumptions around, would people pay to know more about their pension? So it might be a survey. We've had people at Escape do crazy things. So one of our startup alumni started a reusable travel miniatures, and she actually went to airports on 8 different occasions and just marked down the footfall of people who went into Boots at the airport and bought travel miniatures and how many they bought. And she could extrapolate that out to come up with some data on the demand for travel miniatures, as one very small example of a test that she made to test her assumptions for her side hustle. So breaking down your assumptions and ways you can test them. As a rule of thumb, if it takes more than 2 weeks to test an assumption, then maybe break down the problem even smaller. So it shouldn't really take you longer than 2 weeks to test. And think about, what am I really trying to understand about my customer behaviors and the assumptions here? Like, what's the insight that I'm looking for? And then just prioritize them. So just go through your priority tests. Fail fast, test each assumption, reiterate, reprioritize. And all of this will, over time, help you build confidence in your own idea, because you're getting real world validation. You're getting confirmation that your assumptions are true. If you're getting feedback that your assumptions aren't true, it's giving you more ideas of how to better refine and design your idea. And it's hopefully giving you access to a potential customer group. Customers like to be brought on the journey with them, and hopefully at some point they might turn around and say, yeah, tell me when you've launched this thing. I'd like to be a part of it. So you're discovering something about yourself and your idea and your potential for the side hustle with every assumption that you test. Make sense? It's uncomfortable, but it's front loading, and it does save us a lot of pain and time, which we have little of these days. So you're going to get all of those materials and resources and canvases to build out your own assumptions and designing tests for your assumptions tomorrow. What we're going to do now is take a 10-minute break, and we're going to go through the other 3 questions after the break. So it is 8:25 now. So we will be back here at 8:35. I will see you then. So we have covered your why and your guiding principles for why you want to start your side hustle. Some idea generation around who you might want to help, what problems they have, and all the different ideas that you could launch to help solve those problems. and a couple of frameworks for how you might whittle down and finesse which idea you're going to pursue first. The next question that we're going to look into, a very important one, and I love it, is how are you making money? Because it's an important element of a side hustle. It might be a motivator for some of you and why you're starting it. And every good business needs to make money. One way which we like to explore this question is through this canvas, which always has a funny build. So this canvas on here that we've designed has 11 different revenue streams or ways that you could make money. Not every one of these might be relevant for the people you're trying to help or the problem you're trying to solve, but at this stage, it's just a creative process to see how many different ways that you can think of to make money from your idea. And as we spoke about at the start, maybe we're beginning to understand that diversifying our revenue in some way, or knowing that there are multiple ways we can make money from one idea, is a smart move to de-risk our side hustle even more. So the best businesses have multiple income streams, because if we rely on just one and something bad happens and it doesn't work anymore, then we're kind of in a bad place. And it also might give you ways of making money that might be even more aligned to your why and your definition of success, because it might mean you can set up a business that gives you more time or helps you to develop certain skills. Different revenue streams will give you different benefits. So we'll go through some of them, see which ones feel relevant to you. Some ones that we'll revisit this again in a minute. I'm just going to bring it to life with some examples of good revenue streams that we have found work for side hustlers who are doing this on the side of a job. A couple of service revenue streams, one of them consulting. So this is one of our alumni, Tash Banshaw, who started Lifestyle Space. And she's really interested and passionate about decluttering. She's one of the Mary Kondos among us. So she does her decluttering through consulting. So she does one-to-one sessions where she goes around to people's houses or people's offices and helps them to declutter. She can set her own schedule. She can choose how many times she does that a week, and it works really well around her other work. There I am on screen with an old version of my Pakira Money website. One of the ways I started my side hustle and generating revenue through Pakira is through one-to-one financial coaching. It was the obvious idea when I first started the business, and I tried it. I do much less of it now in favor of other revenue streams that I've discovered, but it worked really well when I was still working in corporate, because I could do lunchtime sessions, I could do evening and weekend sessions, and I could aim to do 3 one week or 5 the next week, and I could just be really in charge of my time. And I also got a real understanding of how much effort really goes into one coaching session, and how much it costs to do, or what the fee is that I get for doing one coaching session, how much time I put around that coaching session, and how financially viable coaching is as an option. It was really flexible. I've moved away from it now, but for starting my side hustle, it was the perfect business model to pursue. Events is a really good way of bringing in money. Again, you can host one around an existing work schedule you have. It's a great way of generating early revenue for lots of different kinds of ideas. It's a great way to test your idea, see how many people show up to an event, how many people are interested in this sort of thing, and you can fit them around your job. We'll come back to events later when we talk about minimum viable products, but running events is a really great way, especially now with like the takeoff of Zoom. There's loads of really awesome online events going on around lots of different topics, so you could try launching your own event. A subscription model, this is a real sweet spot for lots of different reasons. The good thing about subscriptions is that you can choose how you do it. So you can choose if you're posting something, you can obviously post kind of around your work schedule. If it's digital, even better, because that can work around your job and operate without you having to spend time on it all the time. And there are subscriptions these days for all sorts of kinds of things. So Birchbox is well known. Vitamin Buddy is a side hustle, now full-time startup from one of the Escape alumni, where you do an online survey for what nutrition you're interested in, what you're looking to improve, where you think you're deficient, and you get sent every month a personalized vitamin box. Headspace, I'm sure you all know of, the app where you can subscribe for a year to have access to all of their mindfulness services. Rubber Book Club we're going to talk about in a bit, and Beer Pods we're going to talk about in a bit. But the benefit of subscription is that it's a recurring revenue. So your end client only needs to make a buying decision once. That gives you multiple income, multiple transactions from that one client. Whereas if you are launching a product or launching one specific workshop, they need to make that buying decision every single time they choose to spend money with you. Whereas a subscription, it's recurring revenue from you, and the customer only needs to make that one decision once. And fourthly, affiliate is quite a good model for a side hustle. So if you have a website that you're getting traffic to that website, you can generate affiliate revenue. So through advertising on the site or through kickbacks from click-throughs. So these are some examples of people in the Escape network again. So No Code was set up by one of our want-to-be entrepreneurs as a side hustle. He wanted to be an entrepreneur. He had no coding and developing experience. So he collected lots of different no-code tools on how you could build a website, how you could launch certain software, do things online without knowing how to code. And that became a one-stop marketplace for entrepreneurs without coding experience looking to build and scale their business online. He now gets revenue kickback from everyone who clicks through to some of those no-code software. And he runs that as a side business and makes like 1,000 in revenue or something from alongside his full-time job. Unfrack Me is solving the problem of lots of people not wanting to support energy providers who engage in fracking in some way. So it's a list of energy providers where you won't be supporting the fracking industry, and if anybody clicks through to those energy providers and decides to switch to them, like Bulb, like Octopus, like Ecotricity, Unfrack.me gets a kickback from that. So that's what affiliate is. Again, it doesn't, once it's set up, once you've got a certain number of customers and traction to your website, obviously that runs and that's revenue without you having to commit a certain amount of time to that ongoing. So those are some examples of what we've seen that works quite well for a side hustle, but it's a really interesting challenge to see how you might adapt your idea to generate multiple revenue streams. Some of them might be relevant, some of them won't be. It's okay, but just exploring as many different ones as you can. So I think we have time for the next few minutes. If you wanted to, I know you don't have the canvas in front of you, but if you wanted to list out some of the ways you could adapt your idea for these multiple revenue streams, let's see what you come up with. So whilst you're doing that, I'll talk you through an example. So let's take Tough Mudder. Jazz hands or hands up if you know heard of Tough Mudder. Wild obstacle courses. So let's say our idea was kind of interesting obstacle courses. So Tough Mudder might look at products. So what products might we launch? Okay, we might come up with our own brand of at-home obstacle courses, equipment that people could use, Tough Mudder branded, where they set up their own obstacle courses. Maybe as a service, we might do Tough Mudder training programs to train yourself for an obstacle course. A B2B, they might do team bonding days where corporates pay for teams to go on these team building exercises with Tough Mudder. Advertising, they might sell each obstacle, like advertising space on each obstacle around the course. They might, for intellectual property, they might have designed their own obstacle courses that they could sell to other organizations of, we're going to use this Tough Mudder obstacle course for this. Perhaps subscription, they might come up with, I think they've just launched this actually, but instead of paying for every individual Tough Mudder you do, you could say, sign up for a year subscription and you could do as many Tough Mudder obstacle courses in the year as you would want to. It might be that events, obviously that is kind of what they do now. They might have a freemium model where they might say you can do the first 3 obstacles on the course for free. If you want to continue beyond that, pay a certain amount. Or sponsorship, they might get certain brands to sponsor certain courses, or affiliates, they might have a shop at the obstacle course itself and they get some commission on anything they sell through that shop from the suppliers. So that's an example of how you might adapt your idea to think about different ways, different streams of revenue, diversifying your revenue from your idea. I'll give you a couple of minutes to maybe think about what some of those could look like for your own idea. This is a huge topic that we could talk about for days, but for this evening, I'm just going to talk about the top of the marketing funnel, which is how do you build awareness with your target audience? So most failed startups had a product. What failed startups didn't have was customers. Marketing is really tough, and most marketing tactics will fail. We try a tactic, we get really excited about it, we like spend hours curating this beautiful blog post, we post it and it fails, and we think, oh, shucks. But what we should be doing is just testing and failing ideas quickly, like putting different types of content out there, seeing what sticks, what resonates. So the best marketing strategy, obviously you build a product and service that people love, which is what you guys will do when you've done all the customer development and persona building, which we've spoken about, that you care about your customers and their problems, because that will be obvious in the way that you start talking to them and approaching them. You test relentlessly the right tactics, channels, messaging to attract the right customer. And you stick with it long enough to kind of figure it out. So don't just post a blog post once on your social media and you don't get much traction and you give up. You've got to make your content work for you and deliver it to your customers in different ways and see which ones get traction. There's no one size fits all solution for growth and for gaining traction. You've just got to prioritize the marketing process over the tactics. So just focus on getting into the habit of trying out different marketing tactics and being really responsive to what seems to land with your customers. You've already written down some marketing assumptions through the assumptions canvas and the assumptions first technique, which we've spoken about. So maybe going back to those and thinking, what tests can I do? What type of marketing tests can I do to test some of those assumptions? There are loads of examples we could go through, but I'm just going to inspire you with a few ideas now. Email signups. Email is still cool. It's a great way to build a relationship with an engaged client base, to test different ideas, to get into a regular habit of sending them regular content. An interesting challenge might be, for other marketing techniques, might be, how can I collect 100 emails from my target customers in 10 days? If you set yourself that challenge, what would you do in the next 10 days to try and collect 100 emails from your target customers? You might do things like some of these. The list goes on. These are ones which we think anybody could really do. So test out some things on social media. Get paid Facebook ads. Everyone seems to do Facebook ads these days. You could contact some press. So I was in the Guardian last week because I'm moving into a camper van and I wanted to get some press around how people can be good with money whilst living like alternative lives. So I had a feature in the Guardian. I was lucky that it landed, but you just got to try these things. You could host an event. You could offer to speak somewhere. So one of my first ever MVPs was to offer to do a workshop to graduates at the corporate I was working at on personal finance education. You could do some content marketing. and which we'll go through some of those now. So there's so many different tactics you could try. Again, it's just prioritizing the process and trying out different ones than letting one failure dictate you giving up or doing something else. Email campaigns, MailChimp and Substack are well-known software that you can use to create really beautiful newsletters. Really good emails if you're worried about not being able to design good-looking newsletters that stand out. Really good emails does what it says on the tin. It's a curated collection of thousands of email templates that you could potentially use. So it's a really good resource if you're thinking about starting a newsletter. So as a news experiment, you could download MailChimp or sign up to MailChimp or Substack, commit to sending out a weekly one like the Escape 10 Awesome Jobs, or a fortnightly or a monthly one, whichever fits for your schedule. Try different other content marketing techniques to gather as many signups as possible and just ship it and see what happens. The worst that can happen is people unsubscribe. That's really helpful insight into your idea. This is an example of an alumni. So Bobby Robson is launching her side hustle called Be More Digital. And she is designing a training platform, an online training platform for helping charities to develop their digital skills or train their staff in digital skills. So her MVP and content marketing was, I'm going to start this newsletter. I'm looking for 50 people to sign up to this newsletter who are interested in the space of helping charities become more digital. That's a much simpler and easier thing that she can do and send out quickly to see how many people are interested in this, how many people are going to sign up, what responses am I going to get to my newsletter. Really helpful insight before she goes and builds a platform with training courses on and tries to promote those. She's already building her target customers and her small but engaged audience. Again, you could run an event. So Meetup is a really good platform to publish your events on. And Eventbrite, obviously that's the one that we use at Escape because that's how you guys got here. And you don't need to be an events company. Your idea doesn't need to be an event. This could just be a way that you are marketing. So this example here, find yourself spending on the wrong things. This is Ollie, one of our alumni, whose side hustle was, his idea was to build an app that helps you save regularly and automatically, specifically for travel. So people who loved to travel and go on holidays and wanting to save money specifically for that reason. He started running events on financial freedom and interest in personal finances to see who was interested, to see if there was a group of people who loved travel, who were interested in finance, who might be interested in how they can better manage their money to fund their travel ideas. It's a really risk-free way that he could also generate an income from straight away and get useful insight from his customers before he went and built an app that offered a savings account for people to save for their future travels. So sign up to Eventbrite, set a date for an event, share it through your various networks and see how many people sign up. Just treat it as an experiment. This is you testing ideas. If it fails, great, because that's useful insight that you can use. And as a worst case, if nobody turns up to your event, it's useful information, you haven't spent anything, it's really low risk, and you've got information as to, oh, okay, maybe this group aren't as interested in this as I thought they were. Or maybe an event, maybe I need to try a different technique than just an event. Through experience, we have found that with free events, expect half the people not to show up. Don't feel bad about it. When most people run free events, a lot of people don't show up. There's always no shows. There's more free events out there than ever. There's more competition for free events than ever. And lots of us are getting Zoom fatigue. So even in the worst case scenario, if people have signed up and they haven't turned up, you at least have their details that you could, like we're going to do, send all of the resources and materials afterwards so they have access to it. And then potentially that might say, oh, I wish I had gone to that. or you might get some interesting data points off the back of it. So at least you still have, even if they don't show up, a way, email to contact them. Ideas that anyone can start with. So you could start a YouTube channel. So create awesome video content. YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world, and it's now owned by Google. What that means is if you publish stuff on YouTube, that's going to really improve your SEO, and you're much more likely to show up higher in search engine results if you have a presence on YouTube. You could start a podcast, or you could be a guest on someone else's podcast. So off the back of the Guardian article, somebody contacted me and asked me to interview with them on a van life YouTube channel, which I'm now doing. And I've been a guest on 2 different podcasts, because not really interested in setting up a podcast myself, but I've been a guest on someone else's podcast around money, personal finance and managing money in a meaningful way. You might want to set up your own podcast. Again, it can be content marketing. It might even turn into your revenue generating idea itself. You could write an ebook. So we've written ebooks as Escape in the past. So things like top 5 career change myths and how to avoid them, or top 5 easiest meals to make in under 15 minutes, or top 5 things you can do tonight to help you sleep better. Share it out as free content, see how many people download it, see what feedback you get. Ask them at the end, if you enjoyed reading this, would you make a donation to me, or would you sign up to my newsletter? See what traction you get off the back of it. This could even be the start of a freemium model. If this book was helpful to you, I'm going to be publishing a full book within a month's time. Sign up or pre-order here. Could become a freemium model. If you're interested in blog writing, Medium is a great platform to post blogs on. I pay for Medium. I love reading all sorts of different things on Medium. It's a really easy way for you to publish content and see what interest you get off of the back of it. Or it's also an interesting way to find other bloggers who are writing in a similar field to you, and potentially engaging them and asking them if you can have a chat about how they started. Or you could create some sort of quiz, just checking the time. You could create some sort of quiz, like Lithographs are a company who publish or who print text from classic books onto canvas, onto clothes, onto scarves, onto bags, all this lovely stuff. And they just generated a quiz for which Alice in Wonderland character are you? And they had thousands and thousands of people fill it out. At the end of the quiz, you had to submit your email to get the results. And then that's a way that they generated more email traction. So you could do some sort of quiz that might go viral, fun, creative things like that. So there are loads of different types of content you could try. Like I said before, don't worry if you try one thing and you don't get traction. That doesn't mean that you've failed. We talk about atomizing one piece of content, which is making content really work for you. So if you have published one blog on Medium and you shared it once on your Instagram and your Facebook, and you maybe got 20 likes and nothing else happened, that doesn't mean that the blog wasn't good. You could make that blog into a podcast episode. You could create 5, 10, 20 different social media posts from that blog content. You could make it into a video and publish it on YouTube. You could design an event around it. So there's so many different ways that you could make any content that you produce work harder for you. So think about how you can really maximize and optimize the different content that you're producing and getting out there. And then once you have some of this content, planning your distribution channel. So because you've built empathy around your customers and you know who your customers are and you know where your target personas hang out, go where they'll be. So if you're working with unfulfilled corporates, you might want to be publishing stuff on LinkedIn. If you're working with the younger generation, you might want to do something on TikTok. If you are working with the older generation, you might want to do email or in-person events. but thinking about sharing your content with where your customers are hanging out, online or offline. The last question of the evening is, how can you make your startup work for you? If you're working full time, you don't have a lot of time to dedicate to this. Picera Money was probably 4 to 5 hours of my week for about 2 years before it came financially viable and me to be ready to quit my job. That might not even be a goal for you guys, but thinking about your work and your responsibilities and other pressures on your time happening whilst trying to build your side hustle, you need to put systems and processes in place to make sure that it's really working for you, because if you're not enjoying it, then what's the point? So how might you make it work for you? Start really small with whatever time you have available. So if you have all these amazing ideas and all these amazing content ideas, customer development you want to go out and do, maybe a good place to start is, this week I have 3 hours. What can I do in 3 hours to progress my side hustle this week? And then using that time frame to design or prioritize what you're going to do this week, but starting small and building it up slowly, so you don't put too much pressure on yourself before you need to. A great concept around starting small is your minimum viable product, which we're big fans of as Escape. Minimum viable product is a concept from Eric Ries's Lean Startup. And this is all about creating an MVP, which is the smallest way that you can solve your customer's problem, testing it, learning from it, reiterating it, and rebuilding it, which we're going to go through a bit more now. So an MVP is the most simple version of your product that solves your customers' problems whilst giving you learning about your customer and about your idea. So it enables you to validate any assumptions and learnings before committing big, and it allows you to spend as little time as possible on an idea before you have kind of a clear revenue stream. So here's an example of what an MVP isn't and what an MVP might be. So let's say the problem we're trying to solve is helping someone get from A to B. And your first idea is, okay, I'm going to build a Ferrari. So you invest loads of time, loads of money, loads of energy into building a Ferrari that your customers can use to get from A to B. And in a traditional business, you might design and build your product like that top row there, where customers can only start using your product right at the end. It only solves the problem once you've invested all that time and energy into building a Ferrari. An MVP for the same problem might be, okay, if the problem is going from A to B, I'm going to give somebody a skateboard. Okay, so the customer can use it straight away and it's solving their problem straight away. Now, your first iteration doesn't look like a Ferrari, but it's solving the problem. And you might say to the customer, how is this for you? What do we need to work on? What do we need to improve? And they might say, okay, I'd really like to be able to steer. Okay, great. So then you change your skateboard into a scooter. Okay, and then you need it to go a bit faster. So then you'll design a bike, and so on and so on and so on. The important thing about the MVP is that it solves the problem straight away. You can get customers can use it, so you can get feedback as quickly and as early as possible. And that feedback is helping you iterate your idea. Now, you might get to a bike and customers might say, this is great. I don't even need to build the Ferrari. I don't need to spend all that time and effort building the Ferrari because the bike does the job for my customer group. Awesome. So that's the concept of an MVP. Now, there's loads of different types of MVP. So an email MVP, which we've spoken about. Escape started from an email MVP, our top 10 emails every Monday morning, which we still send out. You might develop a prototype of some kind, explainer videos, design a landing page, events, publish blogs. We'll go through some of these, but there's lots of them. So thinking about what MVPs might fit for your idea. So a prototype MVP is if you're launching a physical product, creating a really rough first version of your physical product that allows customers to test it. So if you can see on here, there's some really great MVPs that you can launch almost immediately for some sort of phone holder. crushing up a can and using that, or putting your phone in a see-through bag and hanging it from the train. As an old commuter, an ex-commuter, I was always struggled with holding my phone whilst I was watching something on my commute. But these are really easy MVPs before you go and design some fancy product. Is this something people actually need and are going to use? An example from Escape Alumni is Deskmate. If any of you guys have seen Deskmate, lots of people wanting to or needing to stand whilst they were working, but not wanting to spend money on a desk that's adjustable in height. So Deskmate, two guys who got two cardboard boxes and like use this cardboard box to design something that's really lightweight and easy to carry around, so that people could just put under their laptop in order to enable them to stand up for part of their day whilst working. Now, their MVP was cardboard boxes. Their final product is still cardboard boxes, and it's now it might still be a side hustle, it might be a full-blown startup, but now they have a range and they've won a number of design awards with a cardboard Deskmate that allows you to stand up whilst you work, and they don't need to build an adjustable desk that's going to cost a lot more money. The cardboard cutout MVP has worked out as the fully fledged business itself. Another MVP is a landing page. So a landing page is just, this is what I'm thinking about doing. You can sign up here if you're interested in seeing how many signups you get. That's how Tough Mudder started. We're going to do this really crazy obstacle course. Sign up here. We get this many signups, then we're going to actually build the obstacle course. Monzo started, the Challenger Bank started as a landing page. We believe that traditional banks are broken. We're going to design a new bank that works for you. If you're interested, pre-register here for a card. Thousands of people signed up, so they launched Monzo. Rebel Book Club is a book for people interested in reading non-fiction. They set up a landing page, monthly meetup, read one non-fiction book together every month, have a cocktail designed around the book at our meetup. Sign up here. If we get this many signups, we'll do it. Started as a sign up. They use Strikingly, which is a super easy, no code needed website builder. And they now operate in 6 different countries, have over 1,000 members, and are generating like over 10,000, 15,000 in revenue a month. All started from a landing page MVP. Event MVPs, we've covered a lot of this before, but you could run an event as an MVP, or paper MVP. So if you're thinking about a technical solution, don't be afraid just to draw out your workflow or your storyboard on paper and share that with customers. This is what I'm thinking it's going to look like, what it's going to do. I'll talk you through the journey. What do you think? What feels good? What doesn't feel good? What's missing? So don't forget the simplicity and the insights you could get from a really simple paper MVP. So MVP rules of thumb: if you are not embarrassed by the first version of your product or side hustle, you've launched too late. It's from Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn. Your MVP should take you less than 2 weeks to build. And the goal is to learn, not to succeed or fail or anything like that. It's just to test and learn and to reiterate your idea. And it should directly test some of your assumptions. So the key with an MVP is that you're solving the problem. If you could solve the problem in one day and find one person to solve it for, how would you design your MVP? If that was your challenge, giving yourself one day to solve this problem for one person, what would your MVP look like? It's just a nice way to design and force yourself to think creatively about what the easiest MVP could look like for you. And then at the end, you could say, hey, and do you know anyone else who might be interested in this? And you start to build out your potential network of customers. I'm not sure if this is working for you, but this is an MVP of a ticket booth, just to demonstrate that, you know, it doesn't have to be technical. Hopefully this guy doesn't have to do this for very long, but it's just a really cheap, easy, quick way to test an assumption. Love it. So the next bit about making it work for you, what can you do to make it work alongside your job? We all have 168 hours in a week with lots of other responsibilities and other time pressures. It's not often the time or the lack of time that stops us making progress. It's the lack of accountability. So thinking about what accountability structures work for me and what accountability do I need to put in place to really make progress on this. Financial pressure as your only accountability probably isn't a good idea, because it's not necessarily healthy accountability, and it puts pressure on you before you really want it, need pressure on your idea. But really understanding yourself and whether internal accountability works for you, if external accountability, if you need an accountability buddy, if you need to publicly talk about what you're going to be doing and that will force you to do it. What accountability structures might work for you. This is quite a fun one. If you are motivated by money, it's a website called gofuckingdoit.com, and on this website you can submit a task that you're going to do, and when you're going to do it by, and how much money you are going to put onto completing that task, and then you nominate a supervisor. On the date of your deadline, gofuckingdoit.com will email your supervisor and say, has this person done it or not? And if they say no, they keep your money, or they donate it to something that you wouldn't want your money to go towards that you can nominate. So that's an interesting way to get accountability if that is something that motivates you. But it's quite a fun example, but in all seriousness, having accountability of some kind is incredibly helpful to make progress. So think about what accountability structure you need to put in place. And view your idea and view your side hustle as an experiment. And don't be afraid to just think about dating your idea for a month. We can often put a lot of pressure on our side hustle, think that it's a business and it has to be a success, but hold it quite lightly at the start and don't put pressure on yourself from the get-go. It's just an experiment. Try this idea or this potential revenue stream or working with this potential customer group for a month. Test some stuff, talk to your customers and your accountability buddies and friends and family like you're testing something rather than starting a business, and just see what it's like for you. See if you enjoy doing it. See if you enjoy working on this idea. See if you feel motivated and interested. See if it's meeting your definition of success. But just view it as an experiment. This is Peter Levels, another startup guru, the founder of gofuckingdoit.com, but he's also launched a lot in the space of digital nomads and remote working. He set himself the task of building 12 startups in 12 months, just so he could hold all the ideas quite lightly. He ended up launching 7. 3 of them he has continued and is kind of generating a great salary or income from all of those. And it's just him working on them. And it's just a really nice way to hold all of your ideas lightly. I'm going to give myself a month to try this and see what happens. We've had a number of alumni do this. So we have one alumni who's committed to launching 20 startups in 2020, and he's just publishing on a website what he launches, what fails, what goes well. So he's got public accountability. Ollie, the guy from the savings travel app, he did actually work with an accelerator to get funding to try and make that happen. That's pivoted a lot since. He's now really interested in product management for fintech projects, and so his lockdown challenge was to launch, I think, 12 fintech products during lockdown, and he has an email distribution list of hundreds of people in the fintech space, which he is publicly committing to every week, sending updates on where his fintech ideas go. It's a really nice way to both like get himself out there, be held accountable for his idea, and build loads of new skills whilst holding all of his fintech ideas quite lightly. And then creating time and systems for yourself. So being really diligent in your planning. So it takes time and space, and putting habits in place can be really helpful. So some things which might be helpful: moving to part-time if you're able to do that. So going down to 4 days a week, we have a lot of escapees who do that. Shifting your work schedule. So especially now with lockdown, we've all proven that we can work from home. It might be that you're able to start work at 11 or finish work 2 hours early and dedicate that time to your startup. Working from home, obviously you save on commute time, and lots of us are doing that now. If that's generated more time for you, can you now use that time to work on your side hustle? Have a conversation and ask your employer for what you want. So I moved to working from home whilst I was working on my side hustle for 2 years. I took a 3-month sabbatical on half pay and used those 3 months to work on my business idea. I used my lunch times. I asked work if I could run personal finance education workshops at work. So I was kind of helping feed my startup idea while still in my workplace. I had an accountability buddy where every Wednesday lunch I would meet and give them an update on how my side hustle was going. So making it really fit around your schedule. And if you can have conversations at work to help you do that, you don't necessarily have to tell them exactly what you're doing, but don't be afraid to ask for what you want in creative ways. Moving internally, so would it help you to move teams or move the type of work that you're doing, especially if you think there's a skill that you want to be using in your side hustle? Can you change or career shift your job or job shift a little bit so you get to use those skills that will help your side hustle whilst getting paid in your current job to use those skills? Take a sabbatical, find a new job that fits more on your schedule. That's a sensitive one to talk about in the current market, but there are jobs out there. And use your lunch break. So like I just said, you have 30 days worth of holiday. If you added up all your lunch breaks in a year, so that's 30 days if you used all of your holiday to be dedicated to your side hustle. Making use of your commute time when you do go back to the office. And if you're on furlough, obviously this is potentially an interesting time to start your side hustle if you have found yourself with more time. So thinking about what systems you can put in place to work for you. How can you carve out time, set up an accountability system that makes you stay the course? We find that focusing on the systems you put in place rather than focusing on the goal is much more likely to lead you to success. So if you focus on running a marathon, you might achieve it. If you focus on the systems you put in place, like what training you're going to do on day 1, on day 2, on day 3, on day 4, and focus on those daily systems, you're much more likely to achieve your goal. So in the same way that I say obsess about your problems rather than your idea, obsess about your systems rather than your goal. Your habits can start incredibly small, like creativity and idea generation. Willpower is like a muscle. It gets fatigued, but you can also build it up over time. So set your daily habits for working on your startup so small that it would be embarrassing not to do them. So rather than writing a blog today, I'm going to spend 10 minutes writing today. That might work, might be more effective for you. I'm going to do 1 social post today, or I'm going to have 1 potential customer conversation. Make your daily habit as specific and as small and contained as possible so that it's embarrassing not to do it. And then over time, that willpower will develop. 1% improvements add up over time, and as does our motivations. So the more little things that we do, our motivations and momentum will grow, so long as it's aligned obviously to our why and our needs. And it's a marathon, not a sprint. So most startup side hustles are side hustles that you spend a few hours on for a number of months or years before they become something bigger. They don't have to become something bigger, but it will take time for this to work for you. So learning to be patient is a critical skill, but putting those consistent small habits and systems in place that really work for you, and constantly checking in with yourself as to, is this really aligned to the reasons that I started this in the first place? Is this still interesting to me? Is this still something I want to continue to pursue? So before you kind of get fatigued and burn out, if you keep checking in with yourself like that and making small iterations to the idea, small iterations to the content you're producing, small iterations to the people that you're working with, it might mean that things can continue rather than coming across a challenge and failing at a hurdle. So that is all the material that I wanted to cover this evening. It's an incredible amount of content to get through. 5 key questions for launching your side hustle. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. I would also invite you to put in the chat, if you would like to, what your idea is or your side hustle is, and perhaps a way that anybody else in the group could find you. So a LinkedIn profile or a website for a side hustle if you have one, or a social handle, because it would just be a really nice way for us to potentially continue with the tribe and support each other after tonight's workshop. So if you do put any of those links in the chat, I will make sure that you have, I copy them into the email. So you can all have access to those and support each other tomorrow. Emma asked, do you have suggestions or ideas for how to find sources of funding, investment, etc. for startups? Gosh, yes, there are lots of different ways that you could seek funding and investments. You might want to think about what the pros and cons are of different types of funding. So if, for example, you want to retain total control over your business, you might want to look at a bank and business loan. If you are interested in having, as well as funding, if you want some of that funding to come with certain skills or expertise, then you might want to look at certain accelerator programs. I can put some of those accelerator programs in the just make a note in the email tomorrow around some that you might want to look at. And then increasingly crowdfunding is becoming more and more popular. So crowdfunding it can potentially be great to reach a target audience and to have lots of people funding your idea in bite size, but then you have to manage having potentially lots of different smaller business owners, if you like, or people who have a stake in your business, and that requires a lot of relationship and crowdfunding management. But we have some people in the Escape alumni who have started up consultancy companies to get people ready for crowdfunding if it was an interesting avenue that you wanted to pursue. But I would just say that funding and investment tends to be a lot further down the line of a side hustle and startup than you think it is. So I would first be asking yourself, do I really need funding now? Or can I adopt a lean startup method for longer and get more traction, test more customer ideas, build up my audience and sell more products and revenues before I reach out to funding? Because any funders and investors will want proof of idea and proof of traction. So have you got enough of that? And then being really clear on the reasons you want funding and investment, so you know what your ask is and what you're willing to exchange in terms of that funding and investment. So it tends to come a lot further down the line than we think, unless it's like a physical product. But I can put some ideas of places you might want to look in the email tomorrow. Hey Stacey, regarding the section on pains and fears, does it still apply? It doesn't necessarily relate to the specific target group, but where target group can be the cause for someone else's pain or fear, if that makes sense. I think it does make sense. It perhaps sounds like you might have two different demographics there. So you might want to do customer development with both. So the one that has the pain and fear and perhaps the one causing the pain and fear. So it might just be that you have two different personas there that you need to build out and design different customer development for both of those. If that makes sense. Ariana's idea is to support startups in developing their brands based on very extensive experience. I look for my profile on LinkedIn. Great, we can include your LinkedIn, Ariana, in the email tomorrow. And if anyone needs support developing their brands for their startups, there's Ariana's email address. Thank you, it's been lovely to have you. Awesome. Any other questions? I will leave the chat open for another 5 minutes if you want to drop them there. If you want to include your contact details or website or social handles so people can reach you tomorrow, and with permission I will include those in the email tomorrow. We'll also send you the recording tomorrow. Escape are launching a memberships program largely for job seekers and career changers from the 4th of August, but if you're interested in that, then hopefully you're already signed up to our newsletter. and we will let you know about that. We also have our Facebook group, Escape Rebels, doing work that matters, and that's full of lots of people launching their own business and side hustles. So really encourage you to join the Escape Rebels Facebook group. And yeah, please do keep in touch with us, because we would love to hear how you all get on with your ideas. There's the school@escapethecity.org email address. Mine is Stacey with an EY @escapethecity.org. If you'd like to email me any questions personally, then I would love to help however I can. But yeah, I hope it was really useful, and we genuinely would love to hear about what you do off the back of this workshop. So please do keep in touch, and Escape would love to celebrate and support you however we can. So thank you very much. I will stop the recording